Hello, brethren, ladies, and friends, and welcome to Three Knocks at the Door and Natoma 64, a podcast dedicated to Natoma Lodge 64 located in Folsom, California. Masonic education, Masonic events, and other Masonic bodies in the greater Folsom area. Your hosts are Brother Jeff Joe and Worshipful Brother Noel Lucas. If you'd like to share ideas or have feedback for us, or would like to join our mailing list, please feel free to email us at 3katd64@gmail.com. Today we'll be joined by Worshipful Brother Scott Morrison Jr., Inspector for the 404th District of the Grand Lodge of California. We will keep in mind that our conversations will not violate our obligations, and that our opinions in no way reflect any views taken by our lodges or Grand Lodge. We hope you enjoy the show. All right, well, welcome, brethren, ladies, and friends, to Three Knocks at the Door at Natoma 64. I'm Jeff Joe, and we're joined by Worshipful Brother Scott Morrison Jr., Inspector of the 404th District of the Grand Lodge of California. Worshipful, would you like to introduce yourself and give us a brief introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, as you mentioned, Scott Morrison Jr., I'm the Inspector of the 404th Masonic District, which encompasses Natoma Lodge, with these two fine gentlemen in front of me, as well as a couple other lodges in the East Sacramento, Folsom area. This is my 6th year doing this, and I'm having a blast. I'm very blessed to be part of this district and to get to know both of you. And thank you so much for inviting me on here. It's an honor.
Well, thanks for
joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we're lucky to have you. We're lucky to have you as our inspector as well.
Oh yeah,
thank
absolutely. So as the inspector, though, you get what? It's a 9-year stint.
Well, so district inspectors are appointed by the Grand Master for a 1-year term.
1-year term.
So
okay.
each Grand Master that comes in decides whether or not they're going to reappoint you. But yes, typically it's up to 9 years. After 9 years, they like to give you at least a break, but most of the time that's it. And not because you're not doing a good job, but just because even a good inspector, after a while, it's great to get some new blood in there, some new ideas, some fresh energy. However, there are areas out in the more rural parts of California where you don't have enough brethren that are willing to be inspectors, or we're looking for certain qualities in district inspectors, and some of those qualities can be tough to find sometimes. And so there are inspectors who have been known to serve beyond that 9-year if the Grand Master deems it appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, now before that, though, before you became an inspector, you obviously had to become a master of a lodge, a master mason. So let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. And one of the questions we always like to ask is, why did you join Masonry? What was it that was so interesting about it? And
yeah, so when I was in high school, actually, let me go even back further than that. When I was a kid, my first experience with Freemasonry was my great-grandfather. His name was Milton Fake Sr., and he was a Mason for 79 years by the time he passed away. He lived to be 101. Wow. Yeah, lived to be 101, was born in 1900, and in 1922, he joined Washington Lodge number 20 in downtown Sacramento. And when I was a kid, I went to his 75-year Diamond Jubilee celebration. So as both of you know, but for your listeners and viewers, it's an honor when you get to 50 years of Masonry that you are what we call a Golden Veteran, and you get a Golden Veterans ceremony. And that's an honor in and of itself. 50 years of Masonry, what an accomplishment. But then there are very few who are lucky enough to make it to 75 years. And especially because up until recent times, you had to be 21 to be a Mason, not 18 like it is now. So therefore, you had to be a minimum of 96 years old in order to reach it. And of course, he was 97. And as a kid, I went to his 75-year Diamond Jubilee. Now, I didn't know anything about Masonry. I was a kid, I was old enough to know that this was a big honor and that he was part of this organization, but that was about it. But flashing forward, when I was going through high school, I had determined that I was going to go into the military. I was in ROTC when I was in high school, and I was going to enlist in the Marine Corps as soon as I got done with high school. And I started dating who became my first wife, and she was not a fan of me joining the military at the time, and so I ended up not. But that was always tough for me because I felt very patriotic. I felt very much called to that, and there was, when I was in ROTC, there was this sense of camaraderie among all the cadets, and I was really looking forward to that in the actual military. And so I always felt that there was something missing there, belonging to something that was, bigger than myself, had a bigger purpose than myself. And so when we started dating, her father was in the funeral business. And so I was 17 years old. We were dating, and I started working with her dad at the funeral home. And for 6 years, I was in the funeral business before I switched careers. And became a funeral director, and I was taking care of families. But when I was 19, I was doing a funeral service out at the Fair Oaks District Cemetery. And I remember there were these two older gentlemen that had shown up, and they were there a bit early. And so after I was getting everything set up, I was waiting for the family, but they weren't there yet. So I went over, I introduced myself to these two older gentlemen, and one of them happened to be a Mason. And I don't know what it was about him. He wasn't wearing a lapel pin, a ring, anything like that. And I wasn't a Mason. And again, I had almost no exposure to Masonry outside of what I knew about my great-grandfather. But there was just something about him. There was something warm about him, and something that I just connected with immediately. And I just asked him the question. Again, I really don't know what caused me to ask it, but I asked him if he was a Mason. And at first he had this puzzled look on his face. And then he kind of leaned back a little bit, but then he leaned forward towards me, and his eyes were getting wide. And he said, "Son, you don't know this right now, but that was a very big compliment that you just paid me." And I thought, oh, okay. I didn't know what he meant by that. I know what he meant by that now. But anyways, this man's name was Herman Graham, and he was a member of Natoma Lodge number 64. And next thing I knew, he was asking me, well, what do you know about Masonry, et cetera? Well, we didn't have time to talk too much that day because I had a job to do, and the family was there and starting to show up. So he invited me over to his house. He and his wife, they had a home there in Carmichael, and his wife, Beverly, lovely lady. And I started talking to him, and he said, I would ask him questions about Masonry, and he would answer. And it became very evident to me, and this is going back to your question of why, is that it sounded like this Masonry thing was something that might fill that hole that was left by not joining the military, and that it was accomplishing this thing of not only helping me to grow into, I was a very young man at the time, just becoming an adult and trying to figure this life thing out. And I thought, well, wow, if these guys are anything like Herman, these are people that I want to associate myself with. And so he invited me to come out to the lodge, and next thing I know, I joined. And, I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but essentially it absolutely became that part of my life where it not only helped me to become a better version of myself and to grow into an adult and act accordingly, but made me feel that I was part of something bigger than myself, a brotherhood. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally understand the feeling, like a part of something bigger than yourself.
Right.
So you were part of Natoma 64, and you went through your degrees at the lodge.
I did, yeah.
Okay. And then how long were you a member in Natoma 64 before you started branching out into other appellate bodies or even other lodges?
Yeah, so after I got my third degree, I started to work on my third degree proficiency. And I was meeting with Worshipful Eric Wells, who was the first guest that you had on your podcast. He was besides Herman, he was my first mentor in Masonry. And I would meet with him, Natoma meets on Thursdays. And so I would meet with him on Wednesday nights. And at the time, there was another lodge that was renting from Natoma, and that was American River 795. Now, American River was originally made back in the 50s when Rancho Cordova was first starting to grow, and you had the Aerojet factory out there in Rancho, and it was starting to become more cosmopolitan down there, as much as Rancho Cordova can be, I suppose. And so these brothers who they were members of Natoma, but they lived down in Rancho, and so they wanted to have their own lodge, and so they formed American River Lodge. And but the problem was that they were small, they didn't have a lot of capital, and so they weren't able to have their own building, and so they rented from Natoma for many years. But then they went over to the Grange Hall down in Rancho Cordova off of Kilgore, and they met there for decades. And until a couple of years before I joined Masonry, they came back to Natoma and started renting from there. So I got to know a couple of them, and one of them, the senior warden at this time, and this was back in, I was raised in January of 2009. So this was, probably spring of 2009. He said, well, this man's name was Joe Argo, and he's since passed. He passed about 6 or 7 years ago, but a great man. And he said, hey, I need a junior deacon with my lodge. Is Natoma putting you in the line there as an officer? And I said, no, they had approached me, but at the time that they had approached me, I was not sure if I wanted to be an officer. And again, I was kind of just figuring my life out. But it just so happened by the time he had asked me, I was like, yeah, I think that's something I could do. And he said, yeah, because we really need members. I said, well, I don't want to leave Natoma. And he said, well, you don't have to. Just, if you want, you could affiliate with us. And I was like, okay. So I had affiliated, and I was going to both lodges. And both lodges were different, but not one was better than the other. American River was very small, but they were very close and tight knit. Natoma had this amazing history and this wonderful culture and such a successful lodge. And again, both lodges outstanding. Well, what happened is that American River Lodge was moving to downtown Sacramento. And I was, at that time, I was senior warden of American River. And my ex-wife, we were together at the time, and she said, look, if you're going to downtown, you've got two lodges, one in downtown, one in Folsom, and it's taking up a lot of time. And, I'm going to kind of need you to just pick one, essentially. And so I was like, well, I'm supposed to be installed as master of American River. And so I guess I have to go with them. And so I did. I had demitted from Natoma, which is, if I had one regret in my Masonic career, it would be demitting from Natoma, and something that I plan to rectify here very shortly. And so I know, again, I don't want to get too much further ahead, but I'll tell you when Worshipful Jairo Gomez had talked to me about becoming an inspector, and I said, okay, which district? And he said, oh, the 404. And I said, okay, well, which lodges are those? And he said, oh, it's, Oak Plains and Bicentennial and Natoma. I said, Natoma? And he was like, yeah. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I got to do this. I got to do it. And what was so wonderful was I was kind of nervous because I was like, well, I don't know. I hope they're not mad at me because I had to go, with American River and all that, but from the moment I walked through the door, everybody at Natoma, super welcoming, very supportive. And as I've said, these past over 5 years, I'm in my 6th year being an inspector now, have been an absolute privilege to work with Natoma and, to work with Noel. I've seen you go through the line there and just become this outstanding leader. Jeff is doing the same thing. And connecting with some of these guys, such as Eric Wells, Joe Friedson, that I've known for years. And so I want to say it was some sort of divine providence that I got involved with Natoma again. And it has always felt like home to me. And so I'm very blessed at how things turned out.
Well, that's one of the things we talk about often right through the podcast and we're brothers is the journey. We don't know where the journey is going to take us. And that's right. That's the excitement of the whole thing is, I've gone down different paths, different rush to this, check this out, gone back here, home has always been Blue Lodge, of course.
Yes.
And it's just, you always feel welcome. And any lodge I've gone to, any lodge I've visited, it always just feels so welcoming. It's like stepping into your family's house, right? You just know you're going to be okay. It's great. So.
Well, it is, and it's become that way, for my family too. I mean, my wife, who is incredibly supportive of what I do, she and Jack, my son, they go everywhere with me, and they're coming to you see them, they come to my schools of instruction. Natoma's one of their favorite places to come to and just hang out, because that's how comfortable they feel there, and how welcoming all of the brethren have been of my family. It's just one of those beautiful things in Masonry that always gives you a warm feeling when you show up to a lodge and you know that as soon as I walk through these doors, I'm family. My family is family, and I'm comfortable that I could leave my wife and kid with anybody in that building, and they're going to be taken care of.
Yeah, no, it is always a great, wonderful feeling. And there's something else you mentioned though too is, and we talked about this, the different personality types of each lodge, right? And
I
I love it because our ritual's the same. We go through, the schools of instruction are the same, or should be at least. But there's a different personality with each lodge, and that's why
Yes.
we talk to brothers. It's like, or candidates, prospects coming in. It's like, hey, great to have you here, but don't take a moment, check out another lodge, because just because our lodge might not be a fit doesn't mean that lodge isn't a good fit for you. So don't and if you're happy here, stay here.
Absolutely. It's so important for people to find a lodge that they resonate with. Just because a particular lodge may not be right for you doesn't mean that you're not right for Masonry. And I remember
Exactly.
when I was Master of American River, I had a young man who was interested in Masonry, and he eventually ended up joining, and he went through his degrees. But when he first started coming around, he was explaining his life situation to me. He was a single father. He was working 2 jobs. He was very busy. And he had told me that he was interested in joining after he'd been around us for a little bit. And I said, look, and this was tough for me to say as master of the lodge, because my lodge was struggling. We have since merged because we didn't have enough people. So it would have been very tempting for me to just give anybody an application who asked for one. But when he had told me that he was interested, I said, how about this? There's this other lodge that I want you to go check out, because if you join American River, we need all hands on deck. We need you involved in like everything, essentially, because that's how much we just, we don't have that ability to kind of just pick and choose the things that you want to be involved in. And I know that could be a lot for you, because you look at what you have on your plate. And so I sent him to this other lodge, and because I said, this other lodge, they're very busy. They've got a lot of things going on. And this might be, maybe more something that could fit your current lifestyle. And he came back to me later, and he said, hey, I had a great time with them. They're a wonderful lodge. He said, but I think I want to be here. And I said, okay, well, just out of curiosity, why is that? And he said, well, because I know that you need people, and I know that it was probably hard for you to tell me to go visit another lodge, but it demonstrated to me that my experience coming into Masonry was important to you, and that you weren't going to just bring me in because it was going to benefit the lodge. You put more care into what life is going to be like for me as a Mason, and that was touching to me. And so I think that being with you and being with these guys is what I want to do.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you still in contact with that Mason?
I am. He's still a member of our lodge. He had moved away to another state for a while, but he just came back last year or earlier this year, and he's coming around. He's trying to get back on his feet in the new state, coming back to California. And so, but he's come around and whatnot. He's still very passionate about Masonry. But that's the thing is that it's when I do see these brethren who go away for a little bit and they come back. That's the other thing too, is you don't want to pressure them to make them feel like, oh, as soon as I walk through the door, you're going to give me something that I have to do, and you're going to place expectations on me. Some people respond well to that, because some people really need to feel that I have a purpose. There's something that brings me to the lodge. There's something that I have a responsibility that I have to hold up to when I come to this lodge. Other guys, you can kind of push them away that way. Yeah. And so, you kind of have to, again, as you were mentioning, everybody has their own journey, and they come and go sometimes. And, but I'm certain that once he gets things settled back down here in California, he'll be around a lot more.
Well, that's the great thing about the lodge. The lodge is going to be around. So do what you got to do. Take your time. If it's not right now, wait. It'll be there.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no rush.
yeah. Now, when you served as master at American River, I mean, how did that year go? What was your year like?
Well, I actually had three consecutive. So it was yeah, what happened was is I was master for 2013, and the two wardens behind me, great guys, but both of them ended up moving out of state, and so I would always joke. I would always joke with them. I was like, "Was it something I said?" You know, but no, they one of them he had to relocate to California because of Hurricane Katrina, and he was wanting to move back home and be with family, and the other brother had a business that he was moving. So, anyways, I ended up staying for 3 years and doing that. But um, I loved it. I American River again, very small. We didn't have a huge budget. We didn't have our own building, so we didn't have to worry about hall association and all this real estate and stuff like that. So on the one hand, you're kind of bummed because you're like, oh, I wish that we were more established and we had our own building and that we had all these big fancy programs and things like that. But it also meant that we didn't have all the stress that comes with those things. And so we were able to, the things that we wanted to do, we were able to just focus on creating a good member experience. Um, I was very young as master. I was installed as master just a few weeks after my 24th birthday. And
Oh,
so I was kind of like, I was very scared. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but all the brethren that had been in that lodge had been multi-time past masters that had been there for 20, 30, 40 years. And these were some of the best men that I've ever met. Some of the greatest mentors that I'll never forget, guys like Greg Voch Jr., Greg Voch Sr., Steve Matheny, Tom Awalt. We just had some really amazing past masters. My dad ended up joining, and that was probably the best part about being master for me was my dad didn't join Masonry until after I did. After I joined, he decided to join, but he lived in Washington State, and I wasn't able to make it up there for his degrees, and so I was bummed that neither one of us were at each other's degrees. But he ended up relocating down to Sacramento for work, and he wanted to be closer to me and the family. And so during my time as master, he was my chaplain, and so he sat next to
hmm.
me for all the meetings and all the degrees. And after I was done being master, I was secretary and officers coach, and he went up the line. And so I was secretary when he was master. And so we got to work together a lot for 6, 7 years uh, before we ended up, before the lodge merged. And my dad has since moved to Virginia. But that was the greatest pleasure, was being able to do masonry with my dad. And I know that it meant a lot to him too. But I was very blessed because I was just surrounded by some of the most amazing men, and I attribute a lot of my development and the things that I've been able to, do and accomplish. I don't think I would have been able to do without that foundation that those guys set for me. And in fact, there's all these times now where I still, if I'm presented with a problem, I'll think, oh, what would Greg do in this situation, or what would Tom do in this situation? And a lot of times it has steered me right. In addition to the many other mentors and leaders that I've been exposed to in Masonry through various other appendant bodies and other lodges. Uh, there's so much positive influence just surrounding me at all times that, of course, it's like any organization. There's going to be your bad apples here and there. Even Masonry is not free from that. But what is good about Masonry is that it also attracts an overabundance of positive people and people who have done well in their life. And I'm not talking financially. They're good fathers. They're good husbands. They do their best at whatever job it is that they have. They do their best for their lodge. And all you have to do is just watch them and do what they do. And you're going to have hopefully a positive experience, but you're gonna have success no matter what.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point. I mean, we like to obviously highlight the goodness of the fraternity and things that have done well, but there are some things that don't go right. But the one thing I do love about this fraternity is when you have a little quarrel, when you have a little struggle, I always feel comfortable enough talking to my brothers. And
Yeah,
just we can talk it through, having those tough conversations. You don't see that all the time on the outside. They want to fight. They want things get physical, but you
yeah,
know we can have those hard conversations, meet on the level, and just and work it through. And that it has always meant so much to me, and I actually carry that over into a lot of into my work as well.
Yeah.
Just that keeping that temperance, that just steady flow of conversation.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've been touching on this year, as every year we have our Grand Master of Masons of California, and they commission a pin. And one of the cool things as an inspector is that when I go to different degrees for new Master Masons, I like to present them with the Grand Master's pin. And one of the things that I've been saying this year is, our Grand Master's theme is peace and harmony. And what I try to impress upon these new brothers is that throughout their time in Masonry, if they get involved, there's going to be conversations, there's going to be decisions that have to be made, there's going to be actions that have to be taken. Now, as Masons, we all come from different walks of life. We all have different jobs, we live in different areas, and so we're of course never going to all have the same way of looking at the world around us. And so that, of course, means that we're going to disagree from time to time. But what's important is that if I'm on a committee with Noel and Jeff and we're all having a discussion and we're all kind of going in 3 different directions, the most important thing that we need to remember is that we are brothers, and that in the end, peace and harmony needs to prevail. And so as long as I am disagreeing with Noel or Jeff in a respectful way, and I always remember that this is my brother. And so even though we may not see things exactly the same way, but I'm going to treat him as my brother. And therefore, when we get up and walk away from this table, we're gonna shake hands, we're gonna hug, let's go, have dinner together or whatever it is, because that's my brother, and these things, that is more important than whatever it is that we're discussing.
Yeah, you know what I had.
Well, let's just be honest. Oh, go ahead.
I actually had a conversation at my old lodge with one of my brothers there, and it was it got into it was a pretty heated conversation, and he and I felt very strongly about, I felt strongly about my side, he felt very strongly about his side. I knew from my side because I had very personal experience backing up what I had to say, because it was regarding my job at the time, and he saw things from what he saw in the news, and I was like, look, dude, it's what you see in the news isn't always what happens. And I tried to explain things to him, but you know what, we agreed to disagree, but at the end of the conversation, we still hugged each other, and you know what, bro, I still love you. It is what it is. We don't have to agree all the time, but we still hugged it out, and it's almost like it never happened, which is
beautiful.
The best part about it.
And sometimes that actually that helps to strengthen a relationship. If you have a disagreement, but you respect how they handled it and they respect how you handled it, and you guys remember that you're brothers and you walk away, I find that I've had some pretty good disagreements with some brothers throughout the years, and I almost feel like after that disagreement is over, that we're even stronger than we were before, because now we have this newfound respect where it's like, I know that I'm comfortable disagreeing with him without having to risk our friendship, our relationship. It almost makes it stronger than it was before.
Yeah, and it's almost like you have a whole new understanding of the person too. Yeah. So it's kind of.
Yeah, because it's easy to just be agreeable all the time, and I'll be honest, sometimes confrontation is uncomfortable to me. I don't know that anybody's fully comfortable with confrontation, but sometimes it happens. And particularly if you're in a leadership position, you're going to have some tough conversations from time to time, and you can't shy away from those. But as long as you know that no matter what the situation is, I'm going to treat you with respect, even though I might have to tell you something that you don't want to hear, or if we're just having a discussion about what we think about something and we disagree. We're going to have tough conversations, but again, in the end, we're brothers. And as long as, I hope that if I continue to treat you that way, that you're going to treat me that way, and everything will work out in the end.
Yeah. So you did 3 years as master.
I did.
Did it get easier each year?
To some extent, yeah. It's kind of funny. I feel like by the time you start, I don't want to say figuring it out, because leadership is one of those things that you never figure it out. You're always growing. There's always ways to improve as a leader. And I think that's what's beautiful about the art of leadership, is that nobody's ever a perfect leader. But I feel like in terms of going through the motions for a year of presiding over the stated meetings, having certain issues come up that cause you to research the CMC, talk to your officers coach, talk to your inspector, talk to other past masters of your lodge. I feel like for a lot of guys, and I've had this conversation with a lot of brothers, that it's almost by the time they get to the end of their first year as master is when they start feeling like, oh, some of this stuff makes sense. Well, you're at the end of your year. It's time to give it up and move on. And you're like, oh, I wish I had a little bit more time, because I feel like I was just starting to figure it out. And so it was kind of a blessing that I had 3 years to continue to learn and be in that position. And of course, there's some times where you wake up and you're like, gosh, we've got this issue going on, and you're just focused on the stress of it. But I was surrounded by some really amazing men. And I'd say that it got easier from the perspective of I knew, 90% of the job, but there's always that. And the same thing happens when you're an officer's coach, when you're an inspector, so on and so forth, is there's always a situation that pops up that you've never dealt with before. And you're like, oh gosh, what do we do in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
But most of the job you feel better about after, as time goes on.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned too, I mean, the CMC, going through the line, played with it, looked at it, checked it out, but getting into the pillar seats and starting to really focus on it, you start realizing there's a lot of solutions in there to a lot of those problems.
Oh yeah.
We're not the first ones that had this problem. So obviously this is, happened before, and you can reference it.
Yeah.
And find guidance in there.
And that's why I think that it's so important for officers as they're coming up the line. The Grand Lodge of California has put together such an amazing amount of resources to help you in your position. Because yes, you've got the code, which is basically the black and white. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do. But in terms of the lodge management certification program that is required as you're going up the line, the leadership retreats, the online modules, going to annual communication and seeing that's a big thing. If I could give a piece of advice to junior officers that are going up the line, is go to annual communication and, see how these things, how the Grand Lodge operates, and you start to have a different perspective on things. Go to other lodges, and as we were talking about earlier, every lodge is different. If you spend your whole time at Natoma Lodge or at Oak Plains or Harding San Juan, you're only going to see, yes, all lodges kind of operate in a similar way at a very basic level, but the culture, the things that they place importance on, the events, all that kind of stuff is completely different, and that's a beautiful thing. But the more opportunity you have to expose yourself to these different things and get out of those four walls, the stronger of a leader that's going to make you in that lodge, because you're going to see things that you don't normally see, both good and unfortunately sometimes bad. But there are so many resources out there, hall associations. It used to be that every lodge had enough guys to where there was usually at least a few brothers who had experience with building management, executing contracts, making sure that you've got adequate insurance, all these different things. Well, now we don't have as many brothers necessarily to pull from. Not every lodge has that kind of experience within their walls. And so we have all these amazing resources that the Grand Lodge has put together to assist you through that process, including an entire committee that can look into, you want to purchase real estate, you want to undertake a big building improvement at your lodge. We have the ability to help you through that. So that way, as leaders of our lodges, we could be more focused on the membership experience and the interpersonal relations, a lot of conflict resolution and relationship building.
Yeah, I've talked to other masters from other lodges, other officers from other lodges, and it's been interesting because you can kind of tell who's really actively involved in the understanding the CMC or annual communications and things like that. Because I'll hear certain comments and I'm going, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Like, we've already got an answer for that, guys. Just check this out. And they're like, oh, yeah, I was going to do this. It's like,
yeah, most of the time the answers are there, but the CMC, just like anything else, is not perfect, and
Yeah.
sometimes you need help with interpretation of it, and so
Oh,
that's why that's why you go to your inspectors and inspectors. We don't know everything. There's times I have to go to Hyro as our AGL, and I have to say, Hyro, the lodge wants to do this. I think that they can or can't based on this. What do you think? Ultimately, there's really only one person who is charged with interpreting the CMC, and that's the Grand Master. But obviously, the inspectors and AGLs on up, they've gone through these situations before sometimes, and so there's some precedents that they can pull from, and Hyro can go, oh, yeah, Scott, we've dealt with this before with another lodge. This is what I want you to tell the brethren to help guide them. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just saying, there's just so much in there too. I mean, having it all,
It's a
nobody's got
lot.
to memorize it. Yeah, and there's so much.
No,
And
that's
then,
why.
so going back and reflecting,
Yeah, and
but
I don't have it memorized. Control F is your friend, and you start to
yeah,
kind of get familiar with where things are. But definitely Control F, put in some keywords,
yep,
and again, I think the biggest thing about any leadership position, but especially in Masonry, is be resourceful. Use your resources because there are so many of them that are available to you. You don't have to, as the master of your lodge, sit there and go, "Well, I have to know everything." No, you absolutely don't have to know everything. Nobody knows everything. Even the Grand Master leans on his resources, like the Grand Secretary and these different committees, to be able to guide him. That's part of the brotherhood. Is we're here to help each other.
absolutely. And I think that's a key little bit of advice too. That as upcoming junior officers coming through, don't have to know it all. They just who
No,
you can talk to and how you can find the information, right? Um,
exactly.
it's been critical. I mean, even my whole journey. That's leaning on certain people. I mean, Marshall Scott, how many times have you and I talked on the phone and looked at interpretations of different things, right? Just because I read it one way and you helped me see it another way. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. Um,
Yeah,
we've seen it through our hall boards and how we look at different things and had to reassess. It's like, hey, we
yeah,
actually kind of didn't do this right. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's all it's
so
all
it's
it's all part of the learning journey. And I'm learning
and
stuff
that's
all the time. And I've learned from the conversations with you, Noel and Jeff. And no matter what position you're in, whether you're master, inspector, Grand Lodge officer, you always have to have that bit of humility to you, where you realize that I can learn something from somebody who just became a Mason yesterday, because
absolutely.
it's the journey. I don't just learn from the people above me. I learn from everybody, and we're all on the level. So there is nobody below you. If you're in a leadership position as master of the lodge, as an inspector, you're the servant to everybody. You're there to
Mhm.
serve them, and so you can learn from them. They can learn from you.
Well, and that's what I love when uh, when fellow crafts become master masons and they've gone through it, and I want to find out what their perspective was. Like I have my
Yes.
views on how
Yeah.
the third degree is and what it was like and all that stuff, but how did it feel to you? And it's so
Right.
cool listening to some of the stories because they'll tell you something that's like, I didn't even look at it that way. Like, oh, I didn't even think about it like that. And it's a lot of fun. So, and that's just
And
fresh
it's
eyes.
also it's fresh eyes, and it's also, you're not the same person that you were when you became a Mason. I mean, and that's the whole point. But just naturally, as you age and get more life experience, and the further away you get from your degrees, and Masonry has changed a lot. I've been, like I said, I was raised in 2009, so that was 15, no, 16, almost 17 years ago. And Masonry has changed so much just in that time. But I've changed a lot. Like I said, I was very young when I came in, and
Mhm.
so what's great is when I see these younger men that are coming in that are 18, 20, 23 years old, and they're getting their degrees. I love to talk to them about what their experience is, because sometimes I go, wow, that it feels like I'm talking to a younger version of myself. But there's other times where I talk to these young men and I'm like, that's quite a bit different than how I remember it. Doesn't mean that they're wrong or right. That's just how they experience it. And it makes you think of how important it is that we as lodges are really being intentional when it comes to our degrees, when it comes to developing prospects into candidates, into Masons. You have to be intentional about it. Don't just go through the motions. Oh, well, they turn in an application, we accept them, we do a degree, boom, you're a Mason. It's like, no, I mean, yes, you have to do those things, but be very intentional with creating that experience that is going to be a great first impression of Masonry, a great foundation of Masonry, so that way hopefully they can someday be that wise brother of the lodge who's been there for many years, talking about how these guys named Noel and Jeff, when I first became a Mason, these were the two guys that were my mentors, and they really made me fall in love with Masonry. You want people to be talking about you like that someday, and they're only going to be talking about you if you really took the time to invest in their experience.
No, I know, like you said, we've been growing. Everybody has, right? And it's fun being in the officers line, watching some of the junior officers coming in and then starting to work their way up,
Yeah.
and seeing their progression too. And
Oh yeah.
it's just an amazing thing to sit there and within a short amount of time, watching a brother grow, watching the aha moments when all of a sudden that ritual part clicks. And they get it because they get frustrated because they're having a hard time memorizing it. But then when they fully understand it, it locks in, and you see that light click on. It's just great. It's been a wonderful thing to see and be part of.
Absolutely. I think that's the most rewarding part is that you think about how you've been improved by those who came before you, and you want to be able to pay it forward. And when you see these guys, whether they're officers of a lodge or just really involved in the lodge, and they're digging in, and you're seeing that growth, and you can sit back and go, yes, it was them. They put in the effort, but you know that you had an influence on them, and to know that you played a part in their development, I think it's more rewarding than anything that you do yourself. But just watching these guys that come after you, like, if you're master of the lodge and you're sitting there on the sidelines as a past master for the next 4 or 5 years, and you're just seeing this lodge continue to grow and to be successful, and that you helped to train up these guys that were coming behind you. They were parroting you while you were preparing the budget. When you were junior warden, you had the senior deacon behind you, helping you with your putting together the dinners and putting in the sweat equity in the kitchen and all that kind of stuff. And now they're these amazing leaders, and you can sit back and just be in awe of what they're doing for the lodge.
It's been an incredible journey. I know that 3 years is mighty impressive. I know I've locked in on that one. I was like, that's a lot. So
it goes by so quickly though, but yeah.
I bet it does. And that's the funny thing you say that, because I remember when the year started, it was like, oh wow, this is kind of just going. Okay, finally we're here. And now all of a sudden I'm going shooting less than a week or like 2 weeks, I'm out. So it goes by very, very fast. And then you're just sitting there thinking about, for me, it was a 5-year progression. Some I know with different lodges, different progressions, but for me, it was a 5-year progression to the east. And it's just gone by in the blink of an eye.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
But then you think about all the things you've learned, all the experiences you've had in the meantime. And that's a lot of life right there, just in a short time.
A lot of lessons learned, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Absolutely.
And it's like you said, it's being taught by different people, right? I mean, our lodge, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of history, a lot of past masters who've been through a lot of different things, share that wealth of knowledge with us. I love to brag about our lodge because we're also pretty darn good at ritual, I like to think. But it goes to what you were saying earlier, though, about making that experience for the candidate, and I think having clean, beautiful ritual really does help that. And I know you're not part of our lodge, but you have done many of the lectures for our lodge, and that has meant a lot to a lot of the brothers, including myself, because I find you to be one, and I'm not just kissing up because you're my inspector, but I find you to be one of the better ritualists that I've ever experienced with. And I know I'm still young in Masonry myself, but you understand it, you feel it, and it comes out when you present it. And I think that means a lot. Well, it's not just words to you.
Yeah, I've always loved the ritual. I've always been a ritualist, but I know that, this is one of those situations like we were talking about before where I can learn from everybody. And one of my favorite things to do is to watch somebody who is new to the ritual trying to deliver a lecture or any piece of the ritual, and without going into anything that we can't really dive into, when I'm listening to somebody who's giving a lecture for the first time and they say something a certain way, let me say this a better way. If you've been around for a long time, after a while, you start to all kind of sound very similar. You all have the same officer's coach. The officer's coach was trained the same way as it's easy to start saying things the same way, to do things the same way during a degree. Now, yes, we know that movements and words, have to be the same because we're trying to create a unified experience throughout California. But there's a lot of play with how you say things, the intonations, the spin that you put on certain words. And when you've been doing that for a long time, everybody starts to kind of sound the same. Well, when you listen to somebody who's brand new and doing a lecture for the first time, they might say a sentence a certain way. And it's because, well, they haven't been molded yet into this, what we want them to basically sound like, essentially. And that's not to say anything negative. I mean, it's just it's human nature. You do something together for so long, you all start to it's like you and your family. You and your family start to have the same sense of humor together, and you start to, because you're just around each other so much. So when you have somebody new that comes in and you listen to them for the first time, you go, you know what? I like the way that they said that sentence. I like the inflection that they put on this certain thing. It made me think about what the lesson is, or what the virtue or the symbolism is behind what they're saying, differently than I've thought about before. I want to try that the next time I do the ritual. And so the next time you're giving that lecture, you say it that way. And maybe you go, you know what, coming from me, it doesn't sound quite right. Or maybe actually it sounds, I really like how that sounded when I said it. And so what I do with ritual is I just listen to other people, and I pay attention to things that inspire me and that make me think about things a different way, and I try to incorporate that so that way I can make sure that other people are having a similar experience. Maybe I'm saying something in a way that somebody hasn't heard before themselves, and round we go.
I apologize for the interruption and that. Get technical difficulties. My computer decided to die off in mid conversation, so we'll do a little splicing and start all over. Hopefully, there's not too much of an interruption. But go ahead and jump back into where if you remember, Scott.
Remember where we were when we left off on when you left?
I think we were talking about ritual.
Yeah, it's essentially what I was telling Jeff when you dropped off was that I think that what I love to do is I love to watch those brothers who are new to the ritual, because they haven't heard it done so many times that they start to parrot what they hear everybody else do, and everybody starts to sound the same. So when they're brand new and they say something a certain way, and then I'll listen to them and I'll go, wow, I've never heard somebody say it like that. Well, that's because they're new and they're just saying it how it sounds good to them and how it naturally feels. And that's what I think is helps to connect with the other brethren in the room, as well as the candidate, is because it sounds natural, because it really just is. Their actual personality shines through. So I'll hear something a certain way and I'll go, ooh, I want to say it like that next time I do it. And so I'll do it. And sometimes I'll say it that way and I'll go, sounded great coming from that other guy. It doesn't sound very good coming from me. Or actually, I like the way that sounded when I said it. So I just kind of keep doing it that way. And it's just fluid. It's over time. You do a lecture so many times that you're going to, after a while, there's when you're learning ritual, there's kind of a learning curve that goes with it, where it's like you start off, you don't know the ritual. You're just trying to learn the words, right? And as you learn the words and you get to a certain level of proficiency with it, you start to be able to clean it up a bit. Like, one of the things that happens when you're new to the ritual is you tend to go a little too fast. And so we always have to remind everybody to slow down, because when you get nervous, you're just trying to get through it. So one of the first things that you do is you start to slow yourself down. Then you get to a point where you're able to start playing with the intonation and things like that. And one of the big hurdles to get over is the fear of making mistakes. We're all trying to get everything so perfect that we end up taking away from the presentation. I've very almost never have I gotten through something word perfect. Now, and I'm okay with that. I know that every time I go to perform a degree, I'm going to make a mistake. And when I walk into it, now, yes, I want to try to do my best, but when I walk into a degree with the mindset of I'm going to make a mistake tonight, and that's okay. So that way, when I do it, when that mistake happens, I go, oh, there it is. There's that mistake for tonight, or two mistakes, whatever it is. And I'm fine with that. And I don't let that worry me. So I'm not speeding up. I'm not, stumbling over myself and making a production of it. I just keep going because most of the time nobody notices. And that allows me to feel more free to play with how it's presented. And that's what people don't walk away going, well, it would have been great if Jeff didn't miss a word. They walk away going, God, did you hear how he sounded and the way that he put this thing? And I've never thought about it this way until Jeff said that sentence. I've heard the sentence a million times, but when Jeff said it that way, it made me think. That's what people walk away with lasting impressions about, not whether or not you missed a word.
Well, usually it's Jeff couldn't spit it out right.
No.
Yeah, we joke about it, we talk about it all the time, especially with the candidates, as we tell them that, hey, as you're going through your initiation, your ceremony, you might hear laughter. That's not pointed at you. That's just because you screwed something up. That's a con. He's laughing because it's funny.
Yeah.
So it's just
and while it,
for the same aspect.
And while what you're saying is absolutely true, we want to prepare the candidates so that way they without again giving anything away, because we want them to take in this experience without any prejudice going into it. But part of making sure that we give the candidate the best experience possible from a ritual standpoint is to remind the brethren that, hey, look, this is the candidate's first time experiencing this. If you laugh, they don't know if you're laughing at them or if you're laughing at something else, whatever the case may be. And so we have to, that's not because the brethren are not being respectful. It's just, you go through enough of these, something's a little funny to you, you give a little chuckle, you're not thinking anything bad. And we're certainly not thinking anything bad about the candidate. We're usually laughing at each other, like you said. But we want to make sure that we're cognizant of the fact that the candidate is on high alert. Everything is new to him. Everything is overwhelming. And if they see certain things, that's going to take them out of the experience, because they're going to wonder, oh, did I do something stupid? No, you didn't. So,
and that's the thing, right? Is making sure that they don't think it's on them,
Yep. You're right. Absolutely. Yeah.
That and trust are two biggest things.
Well, it's funny because you're talking about it, and I'm sitting here smiling because I'm thinking about our last first degree, and
yeah. And that's why in Masonry, we're so big on the brethren not making jokes. About a lot of the brethren will make jokes about things that are it's like, you can't make a joke because the candidate doesn't know if that's real or not. They don't know. Like, if you're talking to them about, getting a candidate ready for a degree, and you make a joke about what's going to happen in the degree, they might laugh it off, but they might be terrified inside going, well, is that what's going to happen to me when I go in there? And it's like, so that's why we have to be very, very careful. And it's not that, we're part of the no fun crowd and that we don't want our brothers to have fun, because the degrees are fun and things are going to happen in degrees sometimes that are just naturally funny. You can't escape it. But we always want to have the candidate's experience at the forefront of our brain throughout the process, because we want the candidate to walk away inspired, energized, like, oh my God, this was such a great experience. I can't wait to go through the next degree and all that, which is what it should be, because they are sitting there thinking about, well, I heard a couple of guys laughing. I don't know if that was at me or something. It's just totally something small and benign, but it totally ruins the experience for them, unfortunately.
I've heard you say this for the last 6 years, and I think you think it's going to get through to me, but I hate to break it to you. So,
yeah. No, what's that?
Oh no, just not laughing at the kid. We never laugh at the.
Oh, got it. No,
we're just good at clubbing up, and when we do it well.
Yeah, Natoma. There's a lot of lodges that I've been to that just do some really outstanding work. Natoma is definitely one of them. And going back to kind of what I was saying at the beginning is that I'm a ritual guy. I love the ritual. I understand though that people join Masonry for different reasons, and not everybody is a ritualist. People go through the line and they're required to take part in the degrees because that's one of the things that you have to do. It's inherent to the position and to qualify to move on to the next position. But some people are, they're like, well, why do we spend so much time worrying about trying to get the words right or all the movements right? Does it really matter? Is the candidate going to know any better? And in some sense, I could see where they're coming from. But I'll tell you is that even the guys that are not ritualist, when you see a lodge come together and put on a solid degree, there is a sense of pride. There's a sense of camaraderie. They feel like they've achieved something together. So even though, ritual may not be your number one thing that you really, really enjoy, you enjoy many of all the other things that come with Masonry. It's just ritual is kind of a tough thing for you. But when a degree goes well, it really has an effect on the lodge that is almost it's an intangible. It's something that you can't really measure, but the morale, you could definitely feel it going up when lodges get better at degrees. And the brethren want to come and see, these brethren that have been around for a long time, they want to come and watch it because they are proud of their lodge doing a really good degree. So those are the things that I try to focus on when the brethren are, thinking, maybe we're being a little bit overly picky about certain things. It's like, well, a couple of things. Number one is we want to make sure that the ritual is uniform in California, because the teachings of Masonry, particularly the way that we teach them through the ritual in California, is dear to us. It's one of the things that separates us from other fraternities is this ritual that we hold so dear. And so we want to make sure that a brother who's getting his degree up in Wairika, up near the Oregon border, is getting as similar of a degree as possible down in San Diego. Now, there are all sorts of other things, as we've talked about earlier. Every lodge has its own culture. And so they're going to have things that make the experience unique, but the actual ritual itself, we want it to be done right. We want it to be done in a similar fashion to the rest of the state. And so not only is the candidate getting the experience that we as a Grand Lodge, and when we say Grand Lodge, we're not talking about the guys with the gold collars. We're talking about all of the members of Grand Lodge, which include the wardens and the masters. Basically, in a sense, we are all Grand Lodge, right? And we want to make sure that all of our candidates coming through are getting this unified experience, but it also has a lasting effect on the morale of the lodge when we can do good ritual together.
Oh, it absolutely does. I mean, when I joined the lodge, I had no intention of becoming an officer. I didn't even know what any of that meant. But it was watching, Worshipful Kevin Williams, Worshipful Joe Nielsen, and their performance, how they did the ritual. I found it very inspiring. And then at the same time, I also took it as a challenge. Like, well, can I? Can I do this? And that's how it kind of just started. Like, it was more just it's funny. I had no intention, but it's just watching beautiful ritual happen made me want to be part of it even more. I was more interested in it. I was always interested in the history, and the esoteric nature of the fraternity, but to see it, to really get into it, I was like, that's like you said, it's if it's done right, it can inspire.
Absolutely.
And we've been very, very fortunate. Like I said, our lodge has had many good ritualists come through, and so I've always been enjoying. I love going to other lodges to see how they do it and to see how their little inflections that come through their lodge. And I tell brothers all the time, any chance you can get to go to any degree, sideline, just to hang out and be part of it, it's always worth it, and you'll always get something out of it.
And that's one thing that I will, because as time goes by, memories fade, but one thing that will never fade from my memory is when I was getting my 3 degrees at Natoma, and I showed up, and here's all these men that are, dressed up in tuxedos, and it doesn't always have to be a tuxedo. It depends on the culture of the lodge. Some lodges like to wear tuxedos, some don't. But to me, it made an impression that here were all these men on a weeknight They could be home with their families or whatnot, but they're here to bring me. And at first I was like, am I in the right place? Like, these guys are all here for me, you know?
Mhm.
And it was even more touching that there were these other brothers that had come from, because the district at the time with Natoma was Natoma, Hiram Lodge, and Placerville Lodge were all part of the same district, and American River. All four were part of the same district. And so you'd have these brothers from Placerville and Hiram Lodge that would come out, and they came, a couple guys I remember came to my degree, and I was like, wow, so not only are the guys of my lodge coming out, taking time away from the rest of their life to be here for me, but these guys that they don't even know me, they're just from another lodge up the road came down. And that was a huge impression on me as a new Mason. And so when you go and you visit another lodge, it not only opens your mind and exposes you to different things, but it also helps to strengthen the fraternity as a whole, because these candidates, they notice when there's these sideliners that they've never met before, and they're like, and you get to the end of the degree, and what do you usually do? You usually have introductions of visiting brethren from different lodges, and for the candidate to be sitting there as these different brothers are standing up and introducing themselves and what lodge they're from, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys came from these different lodges just to be here for me. That's brotherly love right there.
Absolutely. So we're approaching another year end. I'm assuming you're going to be inspector one more year.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
I said that's locked down. We're good to go, right? So.
Well, yeah, I am for this year. So usually the way it works for inspectors is that the deputy grand master, who is the presumptive, he has to be elected by the Grand Lodge, but presumably, he would be elected the coming year. And what he typically does is, as you get to the late spring, early summer, they'll usually send out notices to say, hey, if I'm elected as Grand Master at the upcoming annual communication, then it would be my pleasure to appoint you as inspector of District 404. Again, that can change at any year. You cannot be reappointed, and again, it's not necessarily a reflection of the job that you've done, but there are always just times for change, time for new blood to come in, or maybe they're redistricting and maybe they don't need as many inspectors. A whole number of things can happen, and so that's why I think that it's always good to never assume. I never assume that I'm going to be here for the following year. I hope, because I enjoy what I do, and I love being with the lodges that I have. But even if I'm not an inspector anymore, I'm still going to, I've made these connections again with Natoma and Oak Plains and Bicentennial and Golden Compasses, that I'm going to continue those relationships. So even if there's another inspector, I'll show up, to the lodges once in a while, not to step on his toes or anything, because I don't want people to say, well, Scott used to be our inspector, let's go ask him, because it's like, no. He's the inspector. I'm going back to the side, and I need to, allow him to spread his wings and whatnot. But I've made these. That's what Masonry is all about. Is that the leadership positions, whether you're an officer of a lodge, a Grand Lodge officer, an inspector, you only hold that position for so long. You try to be a good steward of that position. You try to leave things in a better position than when you got them, so that way we're always getting better. But at some point, it is time to turn it over to the next guy. And again, as we're and part of my job as inspector is to try to train up the guys who could be the new inspectors. And so in a similar fashion to where when you're master of a lodge, or when you're a senior officer of your lodge and you're training the guys below you, so that way you can sit back later on as a past master and go, look at what these guys are doing. And I had a part to play in that, in their development. Is I have to figure out, and it's not up to me, it's up to the Grand Master through the AGL, but I have to figure out who are the guys that I'm going to recommend to replace me when my time is up. And I need to start working with them to cultivate these different, to help them develop these qualities that are already there. Again, when we're looking for inspectors, we're looking for guys that are tactful, who can work well with others. Sometimes being a good ritualist is great, but ritual can be taught. What can't be, there are certain things that can't be taught. How you treat your brethren, how you interact with others. Are you a servant leader, or are you somebody that's just chasing a title? Because we don't, we want the servant leaders that are going to come in and be like, hey, I'm the inspector. I'm here to help you when you need it. When you don't need me, I'm off to the side watching you succeed and move forward. So we're looking for those guys that can replace us. So that way, when I'm not an inspector anymore, I can go, look at that guy. Look at what a great job that he's doing as an inspector. And I worked with him back when he was a deacon or a warden of his lodge. And now he's just really developed into this fantastic leader. And that is going to bring me so much joy to see those guys who come after me.
That is great. And, the lodge is much stronger. I know having you up as our inspector, it's been great. It's been much appreciative. I know that a lot of people are worried when your time does come to an end. I'm just appreciative that you've been there throughout my entire, journey. So that's been great for me. I get to be lucky on that aspect.
Well, I gotta say, I've watched you come. I think when I started, I think you were junior deacon. I think. I certainly remember when you were senior deacon and up, and just watching. You've always been a great man, but watching the growth that you've had over the past few years, and same with Jeff. Jeff, watching him come up as a deacon and a warden, going into senior warden this coming year. Watching you guys has been an absolute pleasure to see how you've really you have set the example coming up. You've treated your brethren well. You've shown up, you've put in the sweat equity. You're not afraid to get your hands dirty back there in the kitchen, or, whatever you need to do to make the lodge function. And now to see you in that senior leadership position has just been an absolute delight.
No, it's been a pleasure. And I thank you. And you've been a big part of that. A lot of our, past masters have been, just the history of the lodge has been a part of that. I know, I think I can safely for Jeff when I say, we just don't want to disappoint our lodge. We love our fraternity. We love our brothers. We just want to do right by them. And, it's been an incredible journey. One I love, that's for sure. And I'm looking forward to what's next. So,
yeah. Well, that's a transition too, is going from master of a lodge to past master. The core of past masters that every lodge has is one of the most vital parts. Yes, the officers are the ones making the decisions and executing. Really, actually, it's the lodge that's making the decisions. But just in the day to day, somebody's got to make a decision of something that needs to happen right this second. The officers are doing that, the executive committee, but the past masters can really be a huge asset to the lodge. But it's tough when you're that junior past master, and when you're a master, you're running the stated meetings. All the eyes are on you. You're making everything function. You're running the meetings. You're the head of the executive committee. You're ex officio on the Hall Association. So you're involved in everything. Now you're a past master. Now what? And that's a big hurdle for guys to come over, because you have to be able to relinquish the control, and you're transitioning from that direct authority figure to that wise counsel. And there's a grace to it. You have to develop that grace of, okay, I'm in a stated meeting. Maybe I disagree with something. Do I bring it up now in front of everybody in a rude and raucous way? No. You afterwards, maybe pull the master aside and say, hey, have you considered this? Again, don't tell them you need to do this because I'm a past master and I know more than you, because again, none of us should come from that place of arrogance. But have that grace of, hey, have you considered this? Or what do you think about this? Or something like that. So that way, you catch more bees with honey, right? And you want to be that past master that when you walk through the door, the officers feel a sense of relief and comfort that, well, we know what we're doing, but we know that if something goes wrong, I can go talk to Worshipful Noel, because he's gonna give it to me. He's here for our best interest, and he's not going to try to strong arm us. And it's a tough transition, but I think when you're able to do that and to get into more of that advisory role, there's just as much fulfillment in that as when you were actually an officer of the lodge. Absolutely. And you can still find things to get involved in. You can still be parts of committees. You can serve on the Hall Association. You can be a trustee. It doesn't mean that you have to just sit down and not do anything. you just have to get comfortable with getting back into that core of brethren that are, just the boots on the ground, getting the work done, and being there as a helpful resource and guide when needed. Not all the time, but when needed, you're there.
But I'm honestly not even that worried. I'm looking forward to my time coming to an end, not because it's anything bad. I'm excited that I can focus on a different style of learning now.
Yeah.
I got involved in Scottish Rite early, probably a little too early because I jumped into the line and I wanted to stay focused on that. So things like that, like I want to go back. I want to go through these again and start studying, getting back involved in these different things. So that's like we were talking about with Worshipful Gomez. You don't have to worry about having too much free time because you can always find some in Masonry, shrine.
Masonry will always find something to put on your blank calendar.
Oh yeah, you can fill in a date there. You don't even have to eat at home if you don't want to. You could be out if you really have an open calendar. So
yeah.
And I definitely plan on staying involved. We got the scholarship committee, which I joined early on, and I've loved being a part of that. It's been so much fun to be part of that, helping out in the community, seeing these, kids and helping them out, and just it's a little snippet, but it's just fun being part of that. So I agree. I always encourage people to try to join these committees, the event committees, things like that going on out there, because we got a lot going on and a lot that can be done still.
Yeah, the Masonry's work is never done, and when you're not master anymore, your work is still going. And don't get me wrong, what I was saying earlier, not directed at you particularly. I have no doubt, Noel, that you're going to be a fantastic past master, and so will Jeff in a couple of years. It's a learning curve everybody goes through, and especially because a lot of officers, from the moment they became Master Masons, what happened? They were, a lot of them were courted into joining the Officers Corps pretty early on. And so you become a Master Mason, a lot of these guys become officers fairly quickly. They're going through the officers line. And so it's like, boom, boom, boom. You're just on this road. And then all of a sudden you're not Master anymore. And you're kind of left with that, okay, now what type of deal. And that's why I think that it's important for masters. Some guys will be like, oh, I have other things I want to go do. And so I'll take a break from the lodge for a little bit. Maybe I'll go away for 6 months and then I'll come back. Well, again, you definitely want to make sure, because obviously there's going to be things that you maybe have put on the back burner while you were going through the officers' chairs that you want to, get to and maybe find more balance in certain areas that you didn't have before. But you don't want to let that 6 months turn into 6 years, turn into I haven't been to lodge since I was master type of deal. Stay involved and keep coming is what I tell to all the past masters. If you keep coming, there you will find a way to continue to be productive in Masonry. Just like when my time is done as an inspector, I'll have more time to serve my lodge, and get more involved in the things that I haven't been able to do with my lodge because, I've been busy with what I've been doing. But, there's, like you said at the beginning, Noel, your lodge is always home. Your blue lodge is always home. And there will always be a need that you can help fill.
Oh, and that's the thing. I mean, we're very fortunate, like I said, again, with our past masters. And one of the things I look forward to is the opportunity to jump back in where a spot might be vacant for a degree, because we got brothers on vacation or something comes up or whatever, and we got to help out. I always appreciate that. I always love it when I see a past master filling in and jumping into that role. It speaks to who they are, how important the lodge is to them, because some people think that well, I'm a past master, I can't sit as a junior steward. No, that's that's just you're helping fill that spot and keep that role going and keep things moving forward. And I just always appreciate that when I see these gentlemen just do that with, how hesitation, even other lodges too, right? The communication between other lodges, say, hey, can you help out here? And it's like, oh yeah, I got you. I'll jump into where I can. Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why all these positions exist. And you always go back to the whole, we are on the level. Yes, you have a master and you have senior officers and whatnot, because you have to have some sort of hierarchical structure to make sure that the lodge is executing, that the officers are executing the will of the brethren. But the master is not more important than the junior steward, is not more important than a brother on the sidelines. They have different roles, but every role is vital. And being a steward is some of the most fun stuff that you can do. It's also very hardworking, and the stewards deserve a lot of respect because of the type of work that they have to do, because it's just as important as any other position.
It is 100%. And, like you said, it was a lot of fun. I liked being able to jump in there and help out with the cooking and everything else that I was got involved into. And so, yeah, no, as my time comes into an end, I'm good because we still have our breakfast, which is love doing that. We got a few things that we'll be playing around with as well. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Al,
Yeah.
I know. I think we've gone a little bit over our normal time, and I do
It's fine
appreciate.
with me. I just hope I haven't talked too much for you guys. I apologize if I talk too much.
Fantastic. I just apologize for
Not
the
at all.
difficulties that we had.
Oh no, that's no problem. No problem at all.
Abby and Jack, patiently sitting by waiting. And we are looking forward to putting that affiliation application in your hands. So,
Well, you know what's funny is that it was not too long ago. Well, and I'll tell you, I don't want to embarrass poor Jeff here, but one thing that really sold it for us was, and we had already been talking about. I told my wife how important it was for me to reaffiliate with Natoma because, like I said, it was a big regret of mine, and because of how well I had been treated since I got there as inspector, I was, and again, not because I was inspector, but I was just welcomed as a brother, and that was really touching to me. We, as I said, my wife and my son, they come to a lot of my schools of instruction and stuff, and we show up for school of instruction, and everybody had gotten so used to her and Jack being there that there was this Happy Meal sitting there waiting for Jack that Jeff had gotten, he had bought and brought. And it just so happened, because Jeff didn't ask me or anything, but it just so happened that it was Jack's favorite meal that he would get whenever we would go to McDonald's. And it was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And we walked out of the building that night, and Abby was like, so when are you going to affiliate with Natoma? And I said, well, I said, I don't know. I said, we have a lot of dues that we have to pay at the end of the year every year because of all these things that, I'm involved in. And she's like, yeah, but I think this one's really, we really need to do this. And I was like, okay, I agree. And so, we will be doing that before too long in the future, just because I appreciate you guys. Natoma Lodge is very special. It's very special to us. And I'm like I said, even when I'm not inspector anymore, I look forward to many more years of fellowship and brotherhood with Natoma Lodge.
well, see, and that's just one more reason to make sure I don't disappear for 6 years, like we talked about, right?
Yeah.
And talk about our years.
That's right. Back in 2025, this is how we did it.
And I want to thank you for your time. I don't know if there's anything else you kind of want to say before we depart. Any announcements you want to make? I know we're dark for OSI this month. Our schools of instruction are the fourth Wednesday, which would be tomorrow, which would be the day before Thanksgiving. I assumed there was absolutely nobody that was going to show up because I'm sure all of our spouses and partners have lists of things that we need to do to assist for Thanksgiving. Next month we're going to do it a little early. We're going to do it on Thursday, December 18th. I checked in with Pedro about that, the master elect, just to make sure that it didn't conflict with his calendar. And then in January we will go back to our normal fourth Wednesday. But no, that's it. I'm very much looking forward to Natoma's installation. Also, I encourage all the brethren of Natoma to visit the other installations in the area, particularly those in our district. We had Golden Compass's Research Lodge installation earlier this month. We have next month, we're going to have Bicentennial Daylight 8:30, which is going to be on the third Tuesday, 1 o'clock. They're going to have their business meeting and installation. And then Oak Plains's installation is going to be the Saturday
sorry, I don't have my calendar in front of me. I think it's going to be the Saturday after Natoma, but I'm going to send out a message anyways. Just want to make sure that the district lodges are supporting themselves. We have some really cool lodges in our district. Oak Plains 789, again, fantastic brethren. I have a lot of good experiences there. Bicentennial Daylight, Golden Compasses. This is a fantastic district, and I'm very blessed as an inspector to be part of it.
Well, we appreciate all that you've done. We appreciate the sacrifice and the time. Wish you. Hopefully all the proficiencies are done. We got a few more still left open.
We're almost done. We're almost done there. Yeah.
Nudge anybody? But yeah, we'll get through it. And absolutely looking forward to the installation on December 6th. Just and not I keep making jokes, but not because I'm stepping down, but just because I love these installations. I love seeing the officers coming through the line. That we're starting to see some of these other junior guys coming in, and it's just like you said, it's that continuation to be and just being part of it, knowing that I've seen it and we get to be part of it as the next generation coming through. It's so much fun. So
yeah, absolutely.
I highly encourage anybody to show up for these installations. They are open to the public as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The future of Masonry is bright. We heard from our Grand Secretary that this was the first year, I think in 60 years, he said, that it was that we had a net positive growth in Masonry. We have some young Masons that are coming in with a lot of creative energy, and they're going to need the experienced guys to help them harness that and put it into action in positive, constructive manners. It's a group effort, but I think the best years of Masonry are still to come.
Well, with that, we will go ahead and depart for the night, brothers, and looking forward to seeing you all at A Lodge, the Lodge, our Lodge, or any of the upcoming installations as well. I hope everybody has a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, brothers.
All right, thank you, brothers, and thank you, Worshipful Scott, for joining us again, and thank you for all your time. And everybody, happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the next episode.